So the Labour Union Giwusa has now welcomed the joint announcement by Treasury and the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy offering relief against that surging fuel price. So we're joined by Mametlwe Sebei, who's the president of the General Industrial Workers Union of South Africa. Thank you very much for your time this morning. And I mean, I've just been explaining to our viewers what exactly the picture looks like with that implementation by the Finance Minister, but he did indicate that this is a short-term solution. A long-term solution needs to be found, and I'm wondering, is this possible?
Well, it is possible. Firstly, we do welcome these particular relief measures because you will understand that most of the working class people, particularly workers, students who are relying on either private transport or taxis for daily commuting to work and to schools, are, of course, worse hit by the increases that have resulted in about 31% increase in the price of petrol per litre from March last year to March this year, about 36% per litre of diesel, and of course, the illuminating price of paraffin has increased by about 56%. So any relief measure, of course, is significant in this situation. However, we're saying it doesn't really go a long way. We need to find sustainable solutions. And for us, sustainable solutions has to speak to the transport needs of the working class people in this country. We need to roll out a mass infrastructure for a public transport that can be accessible to all. We need to be able to say, how do you supply or how do you provide transport, but also energy on a very sustainable, clean, and on the basis of renewable energy sources that are compatible with climatic conditions that support our life in this planet. Those are solutions that are sustainable.
It's quite problematic, though, because what we're seeing is that South Africa has a huge infrastructure backlog, and there's a lot of bureaucracy that has to take place before anything can be done in some of the major provinces. I mean, how do we deal with that lackluster movement when it comes to providing adequate infrastructure like you talk about?
Well, I mean, we do have an infrastructure. This infrastructure is being dismantled by corrupt and corrupt interest in a public sector, within political cycles, is being dismantled by corporate interests that seek an outlet for investment, for profiteering in what otherwise should be public services. This is a problem that we have. But of course, if you look, for instance, in terms of electricity supply, we do have ESCOM that still has generating capacity, that has an infrastructure to distribute and supply energy to everybody in this country. We need to ensure that ESCOM is obviously on the basis of a democratic management and control by actually the workers that are generating this electricity, by workers that are distributing it, but also working class communities to take out of ESCOM those corrupting, corporate and political interests so that ESCOM can be able to work in the interest of majority. We need to be able to say, how is PRASA, how is Transnet being managed? And the problem at the moment is that, as we have heard from the State Capture Commission, those entities are not working in the interest of ordinary South African working class people, are working in the interest of those that have captured the state, both for private and political gain, but also generally in the interest of private big corporations that are dominating our economy. And I think, for me, this also to speak to issues of fundamental transformation of the economy broadly. But much more immediately, we need to solve the issue of deepening energy poverty in this country. The fact that many people, of course, are being forced to opt out of the grid, and as they fall back on paraffin as a source of energy, they are also being priced out of that. 56% increase in the price of paraffin, and there is not even a relief measure by a government on that score. They are saying they are going to be exploring that option. We are having to pay a huge price of fuel in a situation wherein you have a Sasol that was privatized but still benefit from protection of government through what they call an import parity pricing that allow a Sasol to charge the same amount of petrol as an imported oil at a cost of about 30 billion rand to South African people, at a cost of about 0.67% to South African economy and so on. This is in the interest of shareholders of Sasol. Have increased their earning by about over 100%, by the way, as of financial year that ended June last year, and are saying that declaring dividend and restoring dividends to their shareholders is a priority, not supplying a cheap, accessible fuel. And I think for me, this crisis call for a major fundamental transformation of energy supply, but also for a transition to a sustainable, renewable, clean energy that can be affordable and accessible to all.
Mametlwe, what about political will? I mean, don't you find that there is a lack of that in terms of instituting or implementing some of the very valid things that you've just mentioned?
It's not just a question of political will as in the people in the ANC and in government. It's the fact that you have an economy which others have characterized as dominated by what you call a mineral energy complex. That is to say that these are fossil fuel interests that continue to insist that supply of electricity has to be co-generated, that continue to protect Sasol, that along with Eskom are obviously at the center of energy supply in this country, and is in the interest of this, is on the basis of this interest that policies and programs of government, both for energy supply but also for a structuring of the economy, are actually being taken. We need to change the way this economy works, and we need to make economy to work in the interest of the working class people. And what do we say? We say put working class in control and management of Eskom. We say renationalize Sasol and make sure that Sasol, along with Eskom, use the infrastructure, use the capital, use the technical know-how that they have to make sure that they invest in a transition, a rapid transition to a clean renewable energy. There is today, for instance, solar power and wind power is 200% cheaper than electricity generated through Medupi and Kusile. We also have the hydrogen cell technology, which can allow us to power most of the infrastructure, most of the transport with electricity that is generated through renewables. This country has raw materials in the form of platinum group metals that we have in this country that we can leverage as raw materials to be able to ensure that we generate the necessary renewable energy that we need to power and ensure that we supply everybody with the energy needs that they have in this country. Yes. And of course, both for domestic use, but also for public transport use themselves.
Thank you very much for your time this morning, Mametlwe. That is the president of the General Industrial Workers Union, joining us there to weigh in on the decision made by National Treasury and the Department of Mineral Resources earlier this week to cut the fuel levy for a short period of time.